Hello to all my ethics classes. If you are not in class today, and even if you are or were earlier in the day, if you're watching this late, this video is sort of a helpful synopsis, I hope, of some of what we are looking at right now when it comes to virtue ethics. So, our idea of virtue is rooted in action. It's rooted in what we do, but it's also, and more importantly, rooted in who we are as people. Virtue ethics allows us to take ethics from strictly looking at the actions to looking at us as people and who we are. There is an important distinction between something like a Kantian ethics, which relies on duty, a utilitarian or a consequentialist, just in general, theory of ethics that relies on how we make a calculus of good versus bad, of happiness versus unhappiness, the things that we talked about when it came to trying to figure out whether an action was right. Will more people be happy, and will they be better off, or will they be worse? Will they be less happy? And we sort of determined a moral, we made moral decisions based on that. Virtue ethics is kind of, in a way, a completely different way of looking at things, right? Virtue ethics comes from an Aristotelian idea that who we are and who we practice being determines the way that we are as people and the decisions that we make. There are many aspects to virtue ethics, but the most important are basically summarized in the idea that if you want to be a courageous person, you must do courageous actions, and that will make you into somebody who is more courageous. We basically exercise virtue by practicing it. We build it up almost as if we were working out in a gym, and then that allows us to determine the course of action that we take. We do it as almost an internal norm. And so again, going back to that idea of being courageous, if we are courageous, if we practice bravery, if we go out and we participate in activities that will make us brave, then it will allow us to continue to cultivate that virtue of bravery. If we act honestly, then we cultivate the virtue of honesty. If we act in such a way that we are constantly caring for others and being compassionate, then we will become compassionate people. And there are a few notable benefits to this, but it requires what we call a balancing act, right? Aristotle sort of talks about this as cultivating virtue in the same way that, again, we cultivate things in the gym, but that we can underdo it or overdo it, right? There is a balance that needs to be struck here. In the example, for example, of courage, the virtue would be courage. The lack of that would be cowardice, and the excess of that would be foolhardy behavior. So there is a trick, right, to virtue ethics. It is cultivating something, not too much, not too little, and striking that balance. For example, we can see in the terms of being foolhardy, if we just go out and blunder into everything and start swinging swords everywhere, then we are likely to end up hurt. We're likely to end up also upsetting people. People will believe that we are rash and that, yes, we might be brave, but we're also not very smart about being brave. When we look at a situation in which bravery is required, we do not take into consideration caution, right? And the idea that if we are brave, but we don't take the steps needed to make sure that we are also safe in being brave, that we may end up dead, right? But that if we also take too much caution, then we will never do anything that is actually brave. So this, right, is the beginning of virtue ethics in the second part of this of, I believe, either 3 or 4. I'm sort of working out exactly how much I want to go into this. Right, about 5 minutes apiece for these videos. We are going to maybe talk through a little bit of the terminology that we're looking for, right? We right now sort of have the idea of what virtue ethics kind of means, but what kind of terminology do we need? And then in a little bit of a later video, we'll talk about the downsides, if you will, to virtue ethics, right? How does it actually stack up against everything else as a theory of ethics? So, catch you in just a second.